Welcome to your Everyday Life podcast with words of encouragement. We hope that you walk away today in your everyday walking around kind of life, feeling energized by the words of encouragement you are about to hear. Each week, the message will inspire you in your plain old ordinary life. Knowing that Jesus is there with you every step of the day and not somewhere far off will give you new perspectives of your daily life. You can find us online at youreverydaylife.org. Go there and subscribe so you can get new weekly devotional blog posts in addition to the many posts on site. So be encouraged in your everyday life. And now, here are your hosts, Scott Ramsey and his wife, Carmen.
Well, hello, everybody. We're excited that you're back with us again. If this is your first time, you're in for a special treat. I have my co-host with me, as usual, my beautiful wife, Carmen.
Hello.
And a special guest that we're really excited about having here with us today, and that's Terry Modesitt. Hey, Terry.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Carmen.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see both of you too.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. And it's too bad we couldn't have your wife here with us as well, but she's down here in our neck of the woods. You're up in Indiana where it's nice and cold and ice and snow and all that. And we're down here in sunny Florida, right? But we're glad to have you, and we'll talk about your beautiful wife a little bit because of her wonderful story. But Carmen, you want to give everybody a little bit of a more formal introduction of Terry?
Yes. Terry is a lifelong Vigo County resident. He graduated from Indiana State in 1979, and he played lettered in football.
Wait. I have to ask this. Isn't that the year Larry Bird graduated?
Correct. I knew Larry, and we hung out a little bit.
Oh,
all right.
Nice.
So now I can say, because when I tell people we're about Terre Haute, they're like, Terre Haute? Yeah, where Larry Bird played college ball. Now I can say, yeah, where Terry Modesitt graduated and lettered in football. And now I can leave Larry Bird all the way out of it, right? Anyway, go ahead, Carmen. Sorry.
No. Terry graduated from Indiana University in Indianapolis in 1983. He completed a 3-year curriculum in 2.5 years and passed his bar exam after 2 years of law school. That's impressive. I mean,
I barely got through high school.
He worked for a law firm for 3 years and started his own law firm in 1985 and hasn't looked back. He was elected as Vigo County prosecutor in 2007. He is the first Republican that's been elected at the time in almost 25 years in Vigo County. He is currently in his 4th term and is running for re-election. And based on historic data, if he wins, he will be the longest sitting prosecutor ever in Vigo County. That is truly amazing.
Good job, Terry.
It's wonderful.
That's amazing. Yeah.
He's married to his beautiful wife, Karen, 40 years this March. And she describes Karen as the backbone of their family. And I have been blessed to know Terry and Karen and became I feel like a close friend. And she's one of the people that I miss, Terry, from Terre Haute. And they have 2 sons, Jared and Joel, who are also attorneys, and they work in the Modesitt law firm. And I believe that, let's see.
2 granddaughters.
Oh, yes. 2 daughters, Brielle and Kinsley.
Yes. Jared has 2 daughters.
Yeah, Jared does. I love their names. You're only 2 grandchildren. We only have 2 so far. We're hoping for more, though. And then Terry, and I'm sure we'll get into it. He, as I said earlier, he lettered in basketball at Indiana State football. My apologies. Huge sports
Larry
fan.
Bird lettered in basketball.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you throw all these people. I'll just say sports ball.
Absolutely.
But yes,
he's a huge IU fan.
Yes,
too.
Definitely. We are so happy to have you and are blessed that you're going to share your story with us and with our listeners and viewers.
Wow, Terry, that's quite the introduction, and I'm sure well deserved because you've accomplished a lot. Led a very productive life. We like to use the word productive because that means you were very impactful in what you've done. And so, Terry, I'd just like to start out just by asking you, as we talk about on the podcast, your everyday walk with Christ. How did that journey start for you?
Started for me at a young age. When I was 15, I attended a revival. I went to church, but I was in our church was having a revival at the time, a small country church out in southern Vigo County. And it took me, 5 nights to finally decide that I was ready.
Wow.
Every night I'd go home thinking I could kick myself, saying, I felt the Lord calling me and I didn't go up. I didn't accept him yet. And so I beat myself up every night, couldn't wait till the next night thinking tonight's going to be the night, but somehow I'd still not go up. So finally, on a Friday night, I ran up there. I couldn't wait to get up there. And so I was sophomore in high school at the time. And I gave my life to the Lord at that time.
Okay. Wow. So you've already been going to church, though. So your parents took you to church? Is that how that took place?
They did take me to church. Yeah, they did take me to church. As a little kid, I always asked to go to church. So I felt like looking back on it now that, God always had a plan and was kind of drawing me. And there was something in my heart towards God, even as a youngster.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that relates to what you would consider your. No, I think that's the theme for tonight, that you wanted to be able to communicate through your life is out of Psalm, right? Can you remember that verse? What was that?
Yeah, I got it. I can show it to you. I can let you
Perfect,
know I got
because
it.
that relates to exactly what you were saying before you even knew what was going to happen, right?
Yeah, it's Psalm 139, 16, I believe. It's all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be.
Yeah. So even before you were born, he already had it mapped out, right? He had a plan for you. And you already felt that even before you asked him to come into your heart and for him to be a part of your life, right? You felt that tugging already at that young age. Yeah. So that's pretty amazing. I think in my life, Terry, I was pretty clueless at that point. Matter of fact, I probably shared this before when we would play out in the neighborhood. Because remember, back in our day, that's what we did, right, Terry? We played outside all the time. And I remember on Sunday mornings, I'd be playing outside with my buddies and we'd see the church bus coming and we'd run and hide. And we're like, man, if we don't hide, they're going to pick us up. So for you to feel that's pretty amazing, that you already felt that plan tugging on your heart that he had prepared for you. So where did that go from there? Obviously, you're a sophomore in high school, I think you said. You're preparing for your graduation in high school a few years. Did you have any idea where you were going to go at that point with your life?
I mean, I can tell you, especially the first 2 or 3 years, I was really on fire for the Lord. I couldn't get enough of reading his word and those kind of things. But since I was a little kid in second grade, I'd written a paper that said I wanted to be a doctor because I wanted to help people. And so my whole curriculum in high school was based on pre-med. And so then when I got done with high school, I started Indiana State, again, pre-med. So taking, biology, chemistry, physics, calculus, all that stuff over and over, and got about halfway through Indiana State, like 2 years in. And all of a sudden I woke up one day and said, I'm tired of all this. Tired of chemistry now. I'm tired of biology. So I was like, what am I going to do? Because I've still got 2 more years of undergrad and then I would have to go to med school. So I told my parents, I was kind of disappointed in myself. I was like, I've just decided I just don't want to go on with this now. I don't know what to do exactly. So my dad said, just take some classes then and kind of find your way or see kind of what you want to do. So I stumbled onto a law class and liked it and did well in it. And so I still hadn't decided at that point what I wanted to do. So then I took a business law class. And at the end of the semester, the professor was an attorney. And he called me in and he said, well, I graded on the curve. And he said, I've been teaching now 20 years. And he said, I had to throw your score out because you got the highest score I've ever had in any of my classes.
Wow.
And he said, have you thought about being a lawyer? And I said, well, not really. And he said, why don't you take my next number 2 business law class and kind of see how you feel? Well, at the end of the second one, he called me in again and said, you got the highest score in this class too that I've ever had.
Wow.
He said, I really think you should consider law school. And so I started taking more law classes and just decided that that was kind of my niche, that's
okay.
where I should be.
So Terry, are you okay with us talking about finding God's will? Because I feel like that's where you're going with this, right?
Definitely.
With that scripture that you shared, how God had already prepared that path for you, so to speak, and now you're getting energized by some things you're learning about yourself. And I like to kind of put it this way, coincidentally or accidentally, not right, Terry. I mean, that was God putting those things in your path to guide you, right? Do you feel is that a part of God's will already being formed in your life?
Yeah, and I think that, I was kind of young and dumb. So at the time, I don't think you focus so much to realize this is all God while this is happening exactly.
Okay.
You're kind of stumbling through life somewhat at that age,
Okay.
and,
Yep.
but looking back on it, now I know it was all God. And I mean, it's just like the stories in the Bible too. I mean, I didn't have tons of confidence in myself. I was surprised that I was able to do well enough that I was able to get into law school. And I was I definitely wasn't outgoing. I always would rather be the person kind of sit back and listen to everybody else talk. Not antisocial, but more that way than the opposite way. And so once I, got accepted to law school and everything, I kept thinking, okay, academically, I know I can do this now, obviously. And I was ranked fairly high in the acceptance class and different stuff. So I knew that I fit in. But then I was like, but how am I ever going to get used to talking in front of people and being in front of a whole courtroom full of people and all those kind of things? So I still kept wondering how this was all going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as Terry was sharing that, Carmen, did that surprise you just like it did me? Like, wait a minute,
Oh yeah,
how's he
I
gonna
mean,
get in front of
given
people?
your position within the community and everything, I would have never guessed that, not in a million years.
Yeah, certainly. So now, is that something that you had to push yourself to do, or did it just start becoming as you grew in the Lord and found your path, that it just became natural to you and you were okay with it?
I think I still had to push myself. I mean, we have to try a case in law school, moot court and different stuff. So, I mean, I was really nervous about all that. I made myself do it, of course, and those kind of things. And even my wife and I got married my last year of law school. I had one semester left. And, whenever we would go do something, et cetera, especially like with the other couple or people we didn't know that well, or maybe she knew one of them and I didn't. When we'd get back home, she'd say, you didn't talk very much. You need to talk more. You need to do this, need to do that. So she was kind of my coach too. And she's
nice. Yeah.
She at least is very confident and well-spoken and those kind of things, even though some of that might bother her a little, you'd never know it. So she was the opposite of me in a lot of ways in that regard. So God put me with the right woman too.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. That strength that pushes you forward in your path. Yeah. Yeah. That encouragement. So, we always like to think of, how we're encouraged along the way, and God puts those people with us in our path, and all the better when it's our spouse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm wondering, you found your calling. Obviously, God put this attorney, this instructor in front of you to help kind of lead you on that path. Were there any moments during that process and through having to try, in court and do the different things, that at any point were you I think I feel God in this? Or at what point did that happen to you that you came to realize, I think God led me to this?
I would say, really once I got out of law school and started dealing with people and dealing with clients and to see what terrible problems they have and to feel compassion for them and them to feel kind of drawn to you and things like that. I think that, I realized that God's put me here for a reason, and I realize he's in this, et cetera. And we could talk a long time on this podcast, but there was an incident where my son had some health problems, et cetera, too, and different stuff. And we prayed and at the hospital and different things. And in the middle of the prayer, the middle of the night, the Lord spoke to me and said he's healed right on the spot. So they took him up to Riley Hospital and never could find anything wrong with him. So after that, I made a commitment to start wearing a cross on my lapel on my jacket. So I was like, God, I know my job. I'm really busy. I'm working all these hours every week, but I've got to figure out a way that I can serve you while I'm doing it. And it's obvious. So I thought, well, I need to recognize what God's done for me and my family and my life. So I'm going to start wearing this cross. Plus, that will be a great testimony or a great sign immediately to anybody that comes in interaction with me, that they're going to know where I stand right off the bat. Well, that opened a lot of doors for people talking to me about the Lord and different things, even when they were in the office talking about their legal problems, those type of things.
Wow. Wow. So I have to throw this out there. That's not a typical profile or perception of an attorney, right?
Right.
There's a lot of different perceptions depending on what people's experiences are, but a lot of that is negative. But you're putting a totally different twist on this by not only having compassion on people's lives, but letting them know where that compassion comes from, right? That's out there.
That's right. But I'll tell you, Scott, that I was so blessed in my practice. It got where I didn't have enough time to see everybody that wanted to see me. It just really took off. There was days I would see 14, 15 appointments a day and be there for 12 hours. Got to the point that I finally had to be, I just couldn't see everybody. So I'm just saying, even if it's considered a negative, any of that's a negative too, either way, whether you want to look at it as attorneys are just not a good profession, or whether you want to look at it that an attorney shouldn't mix, being an attorney with his faith, those kind of things.
Absolutely.
God blessed me. Immensely, me and my family too. And even running for prosecutor, I'd never been involved in politics ever. And I didn't even know for sure. What's that?
What led to that? What made you want to run?
Well, you know how negative church friends can be.
Yes.
What led to that was that I had church friends that get to church early and drink coffee, and they were all talking. And one day when I show up, they've got good ideas for my life, according to them. We need a Christian prosecutor in this county. We're tired of all the dirty stuff we hear politically and all that. We need a Christian prosecutor. So we've decided you should run.
Okay, so they've decided you should run. So I'm guessing, well, was Karen there with you when they were having the conversation?
Not right then, but on the way home, I told her.
And how did that go?
No way. That's what she said. She goes, no way.
Really?
She goes, why would you want to do that? You're 49 now. We're getting to the point now where you could do less and we could enjoy life more. And you know how dirty the politics is. It will be nasty and dirty. It will make it miserable for all of us. They'll lie about us. They'll say bad things about all of us. That's what we'll be up against. Do we really want to do all that? And so, but Karen being a strong Christian lady though, so next Sunday I go back to church, they start in again. And I'm like, nah, and so finally they threw the bait out. Pray about it. Why don't you pray about it? So driving home with Karen, and I told her, they said you should pray about it. So I said, I am going to pray about it.
Wow.
So I started praying about it.
Yeah.
And I was praying like this: God, you know how dirty politics is, so you wouldn't want me to do this. God, you know that if I would do this, I'll be that much busier and have even less time to serve you. God, you know there's other things you've got for me to do, other ways that I can help you more or serve you more. And so what happened was, the more I prayed, I kept feeling like the Lord was speaking to me, saying, this is a platform where you can show me to everybody in this county.
Wow.
Doing the right thing. This is a platform where you can have more of an audience than anything else you can do.
Okay, now you're choking me up, Gary.
So I told Karen, I said, I feel like the Lord's leading me to do this. So she said, okay, I understand. And I mean, it wasn't easy. When I went to both parties, the first party I went to told me I couldn't win, had no chance, and they already had their candidate. The second party I went to, which at the time was a Republican, only had 2 elected Republicans out of 50-some spots in the whole county. They were like, yeah, we want you. Run. And I mean, I'll never forget, I was mowing with the hand mower out in our ditch, and somebody on a station wagon runs over in the ditch, jumps out, and it was a doctor that I knew, a friend. He goes, you really running for prosecutor? I go, yeah. And he goes, why on earth would you ever think you could win?
Wow.
And I said, he said, do you really think you can win? And I said, yes, I think I can win. And he goes, well, I sure hope so. But he goes, I don't see any way you could win in this Democrat county running as a Republican. Plus, you want to keep your private law firm. He said, I just don't see any way you can do it. And I said, well, just watch. And I worked and worked and worked and prayed and prayed. I mean, people would come to me and say, how did you come up with that idea in your campaign or whatever? I had no experience. That's all God. I mean, he gave me the right pieces. He gave me the right things to say and do. Gave me the energy at that age to go everywhere. I mean, I was at events every night and all weekend. But there was a low point. I mean, there really was. There was a low point where one night went to Westminster Village, and as I was walking in, a guy called me on my cell phone and says, I just got a call from one of the commissioners and said, my son's going to be fired from the highway department if I don't quit backing you. And he goes, what should I do? And I said, stop backing me. Don't risk your son's job. And he cried on the phone. This man was in his 80s. And he said, but that's not the way I am. And I said, just vote for me, but bow out. Don't do that to your family. And so after that meeting, I then went to a meeting of my supporters. And I was late getting to the meeting because the Westminster thing lasted longer than it should have. And they had drawn up some ads they wanted me to run. And I started looking at them, and they were slam ads. And so I'm looking at them with kind of a smile on my face, and I just turned them over, and I said, I'm not doing it. Wow. So one of them spoke up and said, you can't win then. And he was an attorney. He goes, you can't win. He goes, why do you think you could win if you aren't willing to bring out the bad stuff about the other side? And I said, when I'm done with this, I'm going to be able to look myself in the mirror. I said, win or lose, I will not do any of that. I'd rather lose than do any of that. I will not do it. One of the other attorneys spoke up and said he thinks he's going to win anyway. And I said, you're right. I'm going to win the right way. And so I went home that night, and can't sleep, and I have to be in Indianapolis at 8:00 the next day. So it's like 3:30 or 4, and I'm still not asleep. And Karen says, what's wrong? And I just told her what I just told you. And I said, it seems like even my supporters are dirty. I said, I feel like I'm in a pit of snakes. And I said, Karen, this is not where I belong. I don't feel right in this atmosphere. And she said, I finally said it kind of on the It's a Wonderful Life movie. I said, I wish I would have never done this. And she said, but I thought you prayed about it. And I said, I did. And she said, I thought God led you to do it. And I said, he did. And she said, how can you not do it? And so
Wow.
then
Wow.
I know I'm then driving to Indianapolis the next morning, really exhausted. My best friend, Anthony Thompson, who you know, Scott,
Yeah.
he calls me, and he's a pastor in Bloomington. He says, "What's going on?" And I told him the story. And I said, he goes, "Well, what did Jesus say to the guards when they came to crucify him?" And I said, "Anthony, you know I've read the Bible so many times, but I am so tired." I said, "Just get to your point. Tell me what point you're trying to get at now." I said, "I'm too tired to think." And he said, "Well, they said we're here for Jesus." And he said, he proclaimed, "I am he." And he said the proclamation was so powerful that it knocked him back and down. And Anthony now said to me, and I felt like God was speaking through Karen that night to me when she called me out. And then now Anthony, God's speaking through him, because then he says, "Who are you?" And I just, without thinking, it just popped up. I said, "I am he that has him within me." And
Wow.
I felt like it was God talking to himself, because I didn't even think about what I said. And then it hit me. And so then Anthony goes, "What are you worried about?" And so I said, "You're right. I shouldn't be worried about anything." And so I'm kind of stubborn. So God still wasn't done with this. So now 2 nights later, I'm sound asleep at home, and I have a dream. Jesus came and sit on the end of my bed, and I looked up and said, "Jesus, it's you. What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm here to tell you the battle's won." And then right then I just jumped out of bed, and I was looking around, and Karen goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm telling you, I just had a dream. It was so real." It was like, but he told me the battle's won. And I said, so he's given me all these signs. And now he had to even come here to tell me before this stubborn person could accept it. So after that, it was smooth sailing. I knew then it was done. I mean, I knew that there was no reason to spend any more time worrying or any more energy, that God had this 100%.
Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing. When
What a story.
hear your story, I think, if God is for me, then who can be against me? That verse is what I kept thinking. And
Terry, what year was that election?
2000. I was elected 2006, and then 2007 I took office.
Okay. Yep. I think I remember that election. So yeah, oh, that's powerful.
so after you're elected, despite all the naysayers, were there any conversations that you had with, that kind of stood out after the fact once you were elected?
The media that night. So we were at my uncle's bowling alley, and he had a room there, and had a bunch of people there with me that all wanted to be there. And so I was never behind from start to finish the whole election. Well, what got to the end where they were declaring me the owner, I went over and hugged Karen. I said, "Karen, we got to go to the next room over here by ourselves for a minute." And I just broke down and cried. And I said, "Karen, it's just so amazing to watch God work." I said, that's what it is. It's not about really winning. It's not about me. It's about seeing how God did this. And so when I finally got myself halfway together, the media came to me, and I just said that I'm humbled. Those were my words. That was the front page quote for me. Now, they didn't put everything I wanted in. I said, I'm humbled by that God had enough faith in me to put me in this position.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. So Terry, are you, I'm sure you are familiar with the Prayer of Jabez.
Yes.
When Jabez meaning pain, right?
Yeah.
In the Hebrew. And, he prayed, God greatly bless me. And, on the surface, that sounds like a really selfish prayer. But that's what I hear through your story, is that what you wanted to accomplish and do wasn't out of selfishness. It's because you had the right motives in your heart, because you wanted to reflect God. And he had already spoken that to your heart, right? You're going to be a reflection of me. You're going to be put on a platform for people to be able to see me through you. And that was Jabez's prayer. And that's why God blessed him and expanded his boundaries. You already had a flourishing business, right? As an attorney. And now he's going
Yes.
to put you on even a bigger stage because he knew he could trust you with that. So what an amazing story. Talk about, finding God's will and trusting God on that path he's put you on. And I think it's tremendous that you shared the valleys and the low points of that, because that's sometimes when the doubts can start seeping in. And we haven't even talked about Psalm 91 yet, which I know is a life verse of yours, but it's at that time where you can't go by what you're seeing and what you're hearing and what
No.
you're feeling, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Psalm 91, really, I kind of adopted it as my scripture because Karen had adopted it when she was diagnosed with cancer. And she ended up spending 66 days in the hospital and almost a year treatment. She had a huge tumor in her chest, like almost 16 centimeters. And I'm telling you, we had to really do things. We would read Psalm 91 together every day. We would listen to like the song Even If. We had to keep our faith to get us through. And she's the one that really suffered. I was just there trying to encourage her and that type of thing. But I'm just saying though, but I'm here to say God got us through. He was faithful. There was some hard times. There was some times where she was really sick, too sick to get off the floor to even get in bed. But I would say this, keep your faith. God is there. And even through the hard times, ultimately it's going to be his will, but he is there and he got us through. She's been in remission now for 4 years. She's got a great testimony too. She's unbelievable testimony, but I will tell you this much. It brought us even closer to the Lord, brought us even closer together, because when you're in the valley and everything's on the line, your whole life, we've been married to be 40 years this March, to think about not having my lifelong companion and supporter, and those kind of things. Those are tough times, but God got us through.
Absolutely. So, as you're sharing this, Terry, it's impacting me in a way where how essential, how crucial that everyday walk with him is. And you took that to the nth degree. When you are sharing with us about knowing God's will is based on his word. His word is his will. And that's what you put yourself into. That's what you survived on each day as you're going through this deep valley, right? Is his word, his will, his encouragement, his words that are giving you life. You're speaking life. You're speaking those words forth as you're reading them and praying them out. And just to know the difference that walk makes, for people to hear what you're sharing, Terry, I just pray that they don't miss that and that they know that how real this relationship with Jesus is and how essential that daily walk with him is.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody can live without the Lord. I really don't. And even my job with what I have to go through, any decision you make as a prosecutor is never the right one as far as one side or the other or somebody goes.
Absolutely.
But to see, I get called out at all the murder scenes. To see, all the bloody scenes and all the terrible things. I've been out to scenes where bodies been completely burnt, where throats have been slashed, where people have been beat beyond recognition.
Wow.
It makes you realize how evil the world is. Grab onto God, because I'm telling you,
Amen.
There's a lot of evilness out there, and God's obviously the only good thing in this world. And us that he's adopted and allowed us to know him. So it's scary out there. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Scott and I, obviously, Scott's, from Terre Haute, and I lived there for 13 years or so. Anyway,
I drug you there.
Yeah, Scott drugged me there. I mean, those things, you read about them in the paper, but, for you to have to see things like that, for you to, the strength that it takes for you to do your job, just the attorney aspect, let alone the prosecuting attorney part of it. And then I didn't even know that you got called out on things like that. I knew you were a Christian, but I didn't really, I don't know. I'm truly affected by your story. There have got to be some days that even though you're walking by faith, that you go home and you're just like, God, I don't know if I can do this. I just, I guess maybe I'm speaking for myself. There's sometimes do you have an extra dive into the Bible, go-to verses when you're having or is your life verse always the go-to verse when you're having a really tough way, because I know it can't be easy. Dealing with people isn't easy, it's just not. There's so, like you said, and in your case, there's always going to be somebody who's not going to be happy with something that you've decided. So
yeah.
That's just hard. You might be a glutton for punishment.
Well, would you tell God that for me, please? Because he's the one that called me to do this. But,
absolutely.
Yeah. One thing I've got going for me is I've got a praying wife. So, when I get called out, I'll get a text from her praying for you, praying for safety, praying that you can get through this, praying that you can, and when I get home, she's waiting there and she's praying and says, I've been praying while you were gone, so yeah. I'm just telling you, I can't, even begin to say how important that is, to know that you've got a companion like that.
So, Terry, whether, as I hear you share, I'm just thinking whether you feel like he's there or not, that he's there. You got a wife praying for you behind the scenes. You have those friends that are encouraging you and supporting you during those tough times on those strange, by coincidence, phone calls, or those stop-bys or whatever, where God's like, okay, Terry needs an extra dose of encouragement here. Even if it's an angel, you probably even had angels across your path and not known it, right, Terry? Where God knows that you.
I definitely have, Scott. My wife says that when I drive, I've got a legion of angels around me protecting me. She always jokes about that.
I don't doubt that. Is that because of your driving? No.
She's a backseat driver, so you know how that goes.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Terry, in all that you've shared tonight, there's people hearing this that, we're glad that you all are part of listening to Terry share his story. But Terry, is there something that you would encourage them in or share with them when it comes to knowing God's will, something you want to close with?
Probably what I would just say is, pray that you're in God's will and make sure you don't miss it. Don't miss out. Can you imagine what it would be like? Obviously, what it'd be like to not know the Lord, number one, but then number two, if you know him, but not to be in his will. Think about even the people in the Bible. What if they had turned away and not answered Jesus' call? So make a difference in life. Make sure you're in his will. Make sure you answer his call, even if it's difficult, because he'll be with you. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good words, Terry. Carmen, how about you? Any closing thoughts about anything Terry shared or that came to mind for you?
Just in what you said, Terry, it reminds me of me when I was saved, and I came to the Lord a lot later than you did, but I was always looking for God's next yes. And God will get you right. God gives you those signs. You just have to be receptive to it. You just have to be open to it. You have to have the heart to want to be ready for it. And I would just challenge, anyone who if they're not sure they're on a path, just to open themselves up to consider God, to, look to Absolutely. God, and he'll have answers. I just always looking for his next yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I do want to say I'm sorry that got a little emotional a couple times. I didn't want this to be a sad kind of podcast, but
No,
those were
how
tears of
could
joy,
you not?
right?
How could you
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I give all praise to the Lord.
Amen. Yeah. And Terry, we see, if you don't know, Terry's on social media. He doesn't hop on there a lot, but the times he does, Terry, you're always giving God the glory. Anytime I see a post I think that you make, which isn't that often, but when you do, you're giving God the glory in some situation or some event or something that's happening in your life. So that's awesome. So what I want to close with is just by sharing with everybody that's watching, thanking you, Terry, for being a part of the show, and Carmen for being my host on here, that when you see Terry, when you hear his story, what he shared in the podcast today, know that you are seeing Terry in his everyday walk with Christ. And Terry, we, as if we could even pray more, the prayer of Jabez, obviously God has expanded your boundaries. He has greatly blessed you. And we just pray that he continues to greatly bless you and expand your boundaries and your territory to have even more of an impact, if that were even possible. I don't think he's done with you yet. You're a young man, right? You have plenty of years to still live out, and you have a great family. And, tell Karen we said hi.
Oh, give her a hug for me, please.
I will.
Thank you.
But we want to say to everybody as we close that, look at what you heard today and take a look at your everyday walk with Christ and be blessed in that. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on Your Everyday Life podcast. We pray that you were encouraged. Make sure to visit our website at youreverydaylife.org, where you can subscribe and receive weekly devotional blogs from Scott. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Your Everyday Life. Be sure to give us a comment on how words of encouragement has inspired you, and pass the word on to a friend who you know needs encouragement. Be sure to tune in again next week when once again we will look at everyday life topics and apply words of encouragement. Until then, stay encouraged by what you heard today, and may you be greatly blessed.